Hey, welcome everyone. Chris Petrie here. Thanks so much again for stopping by. We're painting together. We're having a great time. We're going to do a lighthouse in an inlet here along the ocean, a beautiful coastal scene. We're going to use the glazing technique. We're going to show you the fun nuances of the glazing technique. We're going to cover everything. We'll show you the brushes and the paints and the color schemes that we're going to use. Not a lot of colors really. You'll see that we're only using about maybe 4 or 5 colors really in essence here. We'll explain that. The colors we're going to use, the palette. We're going to explain to you taping down your painting. Also our masonite board, which has some tape on the back so you have some more traction for your painting process. We're going to lift up the board and show you how you can get some more angle on your board while you're working. When you're using a board like this, a masonite board, you can lift it up and move it around. You'll get your washes to move a little bit more for yourself, for your painting. It's going to look really good. So we'll cover everything and more here. And it's wonderful to have you here. So let's get started in just a second, and we'll have a lot of fun, okay? Be right back. I also, too, right in the beginning of the video here, I wanted to kind of just do a little bit of more of a zoom in of the painting, of the buildings, the lighthouse and the building over here on the right hand side, and some of the water and the sky effects, some of the splashing effects too. So I think it's good to see the more of a closer view of this. Some of you might be watching on your iPads, your iPhones. You might have your TV set up for your videos so that you can watch these on your TV, laptops, home computers, whatever it is. But I realize that not everyone is looking at these paintings in my work the same way. So if in the beginning of the video, I think maybe it's a good thing if I do zoom in once in a while and kind of do a closer look at what we're kind of creating. And if you like that idea, please let me know in the comments section. Tell me, yes, it's good in the beginning to see a little bit of a zoom in of some of the components of the painting. So this doesn't take all but a few minutes, or even 30 seconds to 1 minute, just to kind of zoom in and look at it a little closer. And I can zoom back out a little bit. Like that. All right, so again, we'll get started with the pencil drawing, the layout, and the taping of the paper down to the board, and we'll be on our way. All right, we just saw the finished painting, and we're getting started here. I'm going to tape off my paper on a masonite board. So I use a masonite board often, and I have like some boards set up like this where I put some of that that stuff you put under carpets that's kind of like got traction to it. And then I tape it down with a gaffer's tape, black or white gaffer's tape on the back of the boards. This way, if I put my board down, it doesn't slide around too much. Like you can kind of see it's got a tackiness to it so that things don't move around on me. Especially that's important watercolors. If the board moves while we're making some brush strokes in it, it could really cause a lot of problems for us. So we don't want to have our board kind of moving around at all. We could also tape it down too. The only thing is we're going to be lifting up our board a little bit on this video. So you'll see what we're going to do. We're going to use some different techniques here. So I'm always a big advocate. Please, does it make sense? Try out some new techniques once in a while with your painting, and venture out to maybe do something you haven't done before. It tends to really lead to positive results. And if nothing, it's just you've tried something and you have another bit of knowledge that you have that you can use in a future project. Let's say someone hires you to do a painting, or if you have some commission work and the person that's asking you to do some paintings, they want something a little different. Maybe they want some more water, like more watery looking paintings. They might tell you like, oh, I like this artist, or I've seen this artist online or something like that, and can you look at the paintings? And you look at the paintings and you go, wow, it doesn't look like my painting so much, but it looks good. So then you have to kind of figure out, well, how am I going to make that painting look like that? If you have somebody asking you to do a painting for them, create a painting or something to that effect, like a project, or if you just want to try out something new and venture out to try a few new methods and techniques in watercolor. So what I'll do is we'll tape this last bit here. So I usually just go right over the top, and this tape is actually Scotch tape, made by Scotch. And it's like a painter's tape. So professional painters use tape. They tape off their trim when they're painting interior homes or exterior work around houses and things, and interior trims and windows and doors. They'll take really nice, somewhat tacky but not this tape is easily liftable, so you can put it down on your paper and then lift it up easy, and it's not going to tear your paper at all. So I use this tape this time here. I use different tapes. I sometimes try them out, and then I have a big roll, and then I just try to use them up while they're still good. Sometimes tape if it sits around too long, it will kind of it'll lose its adhesion. So we have to. So that's what I like to do. I like to use up the tape that I have. So I have some of this still here, quite a bit of a decent amount left on my roll here. So I'll use this, and so we tape it down to our board, our masonite board here. And let's see what else we have here. This is pretty good. Now, what we're going to do is just be creative. I'm just going to do a simple sketch of a lighthouse. And what I'll do is, I'm just going to kind of create this from, my memory of creating many lighthouses and painting and drawing lighthouses. I'll just do something creative so that we're going to get the idea of the techniques here, of the adding lots of water to our paper and picking up our board and letting the water flow. We'll use that technique of moving your board around a little bit to get your water washes, to flow and move a little bit. So that's a fun thing to be able to do that. So let's start out. I think I'll go with maybe I like to use thirds. So if we say this is our vertical picture frame, our rectangle. If we break it into thirds roughly, we'd say that's about a third there and a third about here. Just, nothing, it doesn't have to be exact. You could measure it if you want with a ruler and just figure out the 1/3 intervals here on your paper like this. We won't worry about the horizontal hash marks because we're really just going to put some fun lighthouse and a couple, maybe a building or two or some trees and things on the horizontal plane. But on the vertical, we're going to go for the third. That'll be where our shoreline is. So now for the shoreline, I would use a ruler for this. So I'll just take my ruler and take a quick measurement. I'll just say, okay, what do we have here? 2.5 inches. So I'll come over here and just do the same thing. 2.5. Make a tiny dot there just to get my ruler set up. Okay, then I set my ruler down there on that hash mark we made over here, and then over here on this hash mark. Once I have that there, I make sure I press down really tightly so that the ruler does not shift or move around as I make my pencil line. And then I just go across with my pencil line like so. Okay, so that's our first horizontal line for our shoreline. And then we are going to maybe make we'll make a lighthouse. Let's start with that. So we'll come over here. And I'm going to do a light pencil line first. So this is what I like to do. Light pencil lines first. And then from there, I'll go with the darker pencil lines. But for right now, I'm going to just have the... Okay, I'll go darker now. I'll draw this darker once I'm finished. I just want to do the light pencil lines first, so I can kind of, if I have to erase, it's not going to be a kind of a difficult time trying to erase the light pencil lines. So I'll just get the basic shape of things, and then the lighthouse is here like so. And it's basically a cylinder. The lighthouse is a cylinder with a little bit of a tapered edge to it. And so I'll do that, and then I'll make the top of the lighthouse here. Like that. And there's some chimneys on that. So I'll just do a few of those. Like this. Okay, and then there's a tree over here, a pine tree. Just a light sketch of that. So I'm just trying to kind of get my main buildings over here. This building's a little bit further over here. Okay, we'll create this building over here. It's basically a rectangle. So you could think of this as, instead of a building, you could think of it as a rectangle. You could think of it as like a tissue box. So if we're looking at a tissue box, you might see that, or here the same thing, or a brick, or a tissue box, you might think, of a shape that you know. And then up here we have the other side of the gable end of the building. And then we're going to go across here like that. We have another chimney here. Alright, so you can kind of see I'm putting things together. And that should be good. Now I'll go over with a darker line, just so we can kind of see how this all is looking. It'll be easier for you to draw this at home. If you're seeing that darker line, you can hit pause at any time on your video. Like once I'm done drawing these pencil lines here, the darker lines, you can hit pause, and then you'll have that to do your drawing. And I'll go with the darker line too for the water and land. That's actually the land, and then we'll have some water underneath with a small seawall there. Okay, and we're going to continue on here. We're going to make the roof like this. We'll go up here. Again, we're making sort of like a rectangle, but it's flared out a little bit. So instead of it being straight, there's a slight taper to these two edges of the lighthouse. So that becomes like a rectangle with the edges a little bit flared out at the bottom. And then you have a rectangle or a square at the top. Another smaller rectangle there, and then a cone at the top there, or a pyramid, or a triangle. And that's your lighthouse and lighthouse quarters, and then a couple of chimneys, which are rectangles. So you can kind of see we're doing a lot of rectangle shapes here. And we'll do this here roof. And then again, the walls of the building, and again, basic shapes. Nothing too difficult. So there we have it. And we'll do our pine tree over here, just some indications like that. So now you have a really nice bit of information on your painting, your drawing. And what we're going to do next is take another go with the ruler here across so that we can kind of get the seawall. So the seawall, now at this point you can either measure your next hash marks if you want, or you can just kind of hold your ruler and look at it and make sure it's even on both sides. And then if it's even on both sides, or you might want to make it a little bit thinner, the width of this. And this is going to be like your grass and land and some rocks and things like this. And then below that, you'll have a bit of a seawall here maybe. And some rocks and boulders and stuff like this. We make just a line to represent that. And then there's maybe a little bit of some beach sand. So this is going to be kind of a nice relaxed inlet here along this lighthouse scene. So we're not going to have any crazy waves or splashes or surf coming in. It's just kind of this is almost like the tide is out, and all we're seeing is kind of a glassy looking inlet here, a nice little bay inlet. And then that's going to really make for some nice reflection. So you're going to see how we're going to create some beautiful reflections. We're going to use tons of water for this painting. Again, we're going to kind of just, let's make it a point. Using lots of water, we can make our paintings look beautiful. You know, the same as any other technique you're going to use or method you're going to use with watercolor. But adding lots of water and lots of, we're going to do the glazing technique, of course, with this type of a painting. So we'll do all of our washes first, and then we'll go over a second time with the darker washes. But you're going to see how beautiful this looks. And let's get started. In a second or two, I just want to take a quick break. And I always mention, too, when I'm taking a break, that any of the art supplies that I have here, if you're just stopping by for the first time, no worries. I have all the stuff that I use on a normal basis, whether I'm just using some beginner-style art supplies or whether I'm using my everyday professional-grade art supplies. They're all here on the bottom of the video. Easy enough. It's all linked to Amazon. So once you get into Amazon and you click on one of the links below, you'll see everything there, and then you can click on each one as you would like to, as far as if you're looking for a brush or two, some paint, some paper, whatever it is. And you'll have everything there at your fingertips, so you don't have to worry about stressing over what you're going to get or what you're going to buy. All the things that I do have below in my comment section below, all my art supplies, I've used them for a long amounts of time, like over 10 years, most of everything there. So I really have used everything, and it's all really good quality, fair pricing, and it really works fantastic and holds up a long time. So I'm not putting anything in my art supplies down below that are not going to perform, really phenomenal for you. They will. Trust me, they will. I'm the only, I use my art supplies on an ongoing basis all the time, consistently. You know that I'm here on YouTube every weekend, painting, drawing and painting, and I also do professional work during the week. So I'm always drawing and painting in watercolor, and you'll be satisfied with any of the products that are down below. Trust me. If not, you text me and let me know about it, and I'll see if I can maybe talk to you about maybe there is one or two brushes, you bought them and you don't like them. Well, I can kind of, I've bought a lot of brushes, so I'll kind of like say, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe that one's not the greatest brush, but I do put them in my description below because they do handle phenomenal for me. But whatever, we'll always want to chat together in the comment section, or if you send me emails, whatever it is, we're always open to talking about our art supplies, whatever it is, questions, concerns, or just chatting and stuff like this. So especially in the comment section in each of these videos, everyone loves to hear everybody chatting and talking about the videos and what everyone's up to and how everything's going with everybody. So please feel free to use those resources for yourself so that you can get in contact with other artists too and ask questions or whatever it is you might need. Okay, all right, let's be back in about 2 seconds. All right, we're just getting back now, and I always want to mention with my brushes, I will use some flat, square brushes here. So I have a few on hand. And then, of course, I'm going to use my regular round brushes. But for this painting, I will use a couple of the flat brushes, square edge brushes. So the first thing I will use is the square edge brush for my first wash. So I have my water container with fresh, clean water. When I clean out my water container, I scrub it around with the brush, get any of the sediment off the inside of the container, water bucket here. And then I'm ready to start with fresh water. And what I'm going to do is just simply take that fresh, clean water and start putting it onto the paper. And, this is very simple. The glazing technique method works phenomenal. So you dampen up your whole paper from top to bottom to start with. Okay. And the tape should be fine. You make sure your tape is really sealed down. I always push really hard along the seal of my tape around here like this. The rest of the tape I press down too, but I really make sure it's nice and firm along here. This way not too much water will seep under there. Hopefully none at all. And then, again, we're going to just get this paper really good and saturated. It's going to buckle a little bit, but that's just normal. And that's why we're going to work a little fast. When you put lots of water on your paper, then you can come back with your tissue and blot up anything you might see at the bottom that's pooling up, or if you see any pools of water anywhere for some reason, you can lift them up gently with a tissue. And now you have a fantastic entire, this is Arches paper too, Arches rough. It's got the orange cover on the cover of the paper. So then I'm going to go right in quickly and I'll grab my cerulean blue. What a beautiful blue, and some cobalt blue, a little bit in there too, a little bit of French ultramarine. So I'm going to mix up all my blues here, and I'll add some water to it. And what I would do is add a little bit of brown in there, maybe a little bit of orange. I wouldn't add a tremendous amount of orange and brown, but enough that it's going to, neutralize that blue a little bit, and a little more French ultramarine blue. So, and I wouldn't really mix it all that much. Can you see how I kind of just mixed it a little bit, like this? And then what I'm going to do is take my brush really lightly and just start going like this, and just make some vertical brush strokes like this. And I'm not worrying too much. Is it dark? Is it light? I'm trying to, like this. Okay, and you just do that. Get the whole thing in here. And if there's a little bit of brown or red in there, no problem. See, that's what the fun thing about painting in watercolors. If you do have something where a situation where you have some other color leak in to your painting, or you pick up something by act, no worries. Just take it and move it around everywhere else. Like this. You can even go in quickly with a paper towel. If there's maybe too much of a smudge here, and you can just kind of lift it up like this. Like that. But still, we're going to add that in. I think it looks good. Nice, beautiful color, color combination of like the reds, burnt sienna, and the blues. Like this. Okay, and you can kind of see how I smooth everything in there, and that's perfect. All we're going to do now is let that dry. And if you do see something, again, puddling up anywhere, like I might see a little bit of a puddling here, so I'll take this and just do this. Do a couple quick, like that. So if I see puddles here and there, I'll just do a quick with the paper towel or tissue. But that's the kind of watery look we want. And then you can even lift it up like this. And if you want, you can take some more water and some blue. And you can take your board and lift it up. Take some of that paint and let it flow on down. Have some fun with this. Okay. Just like that. And you can see how I let that tip my paper and let it flow down like that. And then you can always put a roll of tape underneath if you want. Like this, underneath the top of your board to keep that pitch on your board a little bit steeper so that water continues to kind of flow down. That will make a difference. And then I'll go along the bottom of the board here and just lift up that puddling of water that's along the bottom of the tape. You'll often have that if you're using lots of water. You'll see that puddling of the water, the washes at the bottom. So you just take a paper towel and run it along there and just touch the bottom of the paper just ever so slightly and let that water, puddled water, just soak onto the paper towel, and you can lift it up, and then you can go around carefully too, up here and around, to just mop up a little bit of the any puddles that are around the outside of your tape. So I'll just do that quickly, and you'll find that everything kind of works out real nicely if you just lift up some of that water that's around the exterior of your tape. So I hope you're having a great time. We're having lots of fun with this. Watercolor's great. There's so many different kinds of techniques and methods you can use. This is one of them. Tons of water, and we're going to come back and keep working on this, but we're going to let this dry for now. So that's the key. For this part of the painting, you let this dry now 100%, and you can either let it dry naturally, maybe for like 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. If it's in a warm room, if it's summertime, it might dry a little quicker. If it's wintertime, it's a little cooler in the room, it might dry slower. Or you can always get a blow dryer and just blow dry it off nice and carefully, nice and take your time. Maybe 10, 15, 5, 10 minutes even, usually is all you need, 5 or 10 minutes with a blow dryer. And it really does a nice job to dry up the wash. And the way you know your wash is dry is, one, the buckling of the paper, because now we have buckling in our paper from all that water we put on it. The buckling is going to reduce a lot, almost to nothing, but sometimes it will have a tiny bit of some buckling to it, but it should mostly go away once you are blow drying it, or if you let it dry naturally. So you want it back to almost a perfectly flat state again, versus all the buckles. And that's how you know the paper is dry. Besides touching it and saying, okay, yeah, it feels pretty dry, seeing that the paper is back almost to the flat state, then you're pretty much 100% good to go back in and do our secondary washes. All right, so we'll come right back in a second and finish up the painting, because right now we're pretty much halfway there, and then we'll finish up with the darker washes over the top. All right, now the fun begins. We're going to get finishing up here. The only thing I think we could do differently is, let me change out my water first here. I just want to Get some fresh, clean water in my water bucket. But what I'm thinking is, we did use quite a simple color scheme when we started the painting. Again, we used the our three blues, our three main blues, which would be French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, and cerulean blue. So we kind of used those and mixed them up a little bit. But that's pretty much blue, right? You know, you have variation in there though, which is really good, right? That's what we want. Does that make sense? We want a little bit of variation. Like if you just take one blue, like French ultramarine blue or cerulean blue, and you created this wash, and that's all you used, it would be kind of, you know, plain, don't you think? So that's why we add those three different blues, so we get a nice variation of blue. And then we did have a little bit of burnt sienna and burnt umber in the mix, and we actually, by accident, our brush dipped into a little bit of extra burnt sienna, which was right there. No problem. You saw how we just kind of blended it in, and I think it looks absolutely beautiful this way. Now, the thing is, I want to add a little more color to this and add a few more colors to the color scheme, but not a tremendous amount, but just let's go with 2 more colors that we know we want to kind of, you know, spice it up a little more. So what I'll do is I'll say, let me use some sap green. So I'll come down here and add some sap green to my palette, like that. Not a lot, just to get something going there. A little extra color. And purple, some ultramarine violet. So I think if we add a little bit of these 2 colors, and don't forget, you can add these 2 colors as well as all the colors we started with, which again was the French ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, as well as a little bit of burnt sienna and burnt umber. So you can use all the colors that we started with, and then we're just going to add in the green and the purple to this painting. So even if you wanted to, you could jot down on a piece of paper next to your art table and just say, these are the colors I'm using, and that's all I'm going to use. So you wouldn't want to add anything further. Try to keep it to just that limited kind of palette. Instead of maybe using every color that's in the palette, or, you know, so on and so forth. All right, so we have it. Now the thing is, when you're going to add these different colors to this painting, the sap green and the ultramarine violet, we always cover this on my channel, and if you've been here a while, and if it's your first time here, again, welcome. Thank you so much for coming by. I'm glad you're here painting with me and with all of us here. And also, I wanted to say a thank you to Martha. Martha, thank you for the gift. Martha bought me a coffee this week, so I want to just say a special thank you to Martha. You're really kind for doing that for me. And let's see. All right, so again, we'll take a little bit of that green and purple and work it in right now, just in the beginning, as we're starting up again to finish up the painting, and we'll put them super lightly, though. You're not going to add much water at all. You just want to have a little bit of that green and purple. So you see how I'm just adding a tiny bit, and then maybe taking a little bit of water and just kind of softening it in there. But not a lot. You want to just put a little bit there, and then maybe a little bit over here too. And then dampen up the brush. Maybe you keep a tissue with you, or paper towel, or a sponge next to your water bucket. Dry off a little bit of the water and just have like a damp brush and kind of smooth that green in up here. And then do the same thing. Take that green and bring it down here in here. And we're going to keep this light, actually. That's going to be where the light's coming from, the right this side of the painting across. So again, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that green and bring it down into the bottom of the painting. And what this does is it harmonizes your colors in your painting, so that when you add green somewhere else, like if we're painting the buildings, the lighthouse, whatever it is, if we're adding green or purple anywhere else, it's going to blend right in with the whole painting, and it'll look fine. So then we'll add some purple up here. So that's all you're doing, is just making sure that if you're going to add a few new colors to your painting, please, please, please add it everywhere. Don't just put it in one spot. It'll look funny. It won't look good. And that's what we're doing. So we're going to add some purple and green a little bit everywhere. And see how that works? So now we have purple and green, but very subtly though. You see that I didn't put it on heavy at all. Just a little bit. And you can even tap it up a little bit. Why not? Tap it up if you want to. If you find that you've added too much wash or color or something like that, you could use a tissue or a paper towel. And just, but that's the overall look you want. Now, when we go in to finish up, which we're going to do right now. I'll get my smaller brush. This is the Da Vinci number 5 travel brush. Fantastic brush. Comes with the Schmincke set. Comes with this set right here. If you buy this brand new. Only thing is my paint tray here. All of my pans. I custom made this. Like I bought these pans. You can buy these separately. The watercolor pans, right? You can buy them separately. And then what I did is simply enough. I just took the original paints that were in this palette, took those out, put double stick tape down in the bottom of this part of the pan or the palette, and then took these pans and stuck them down into the palette so that I had extra pans and had them all set up the way I want them to. And this isn't actually any particular way. I just used large pans on top here and then small pans all down through here. I think I have a video on this too. If there's, you could just look up Chris Petrie palettes and you'll probably find that I have one where I show how to put this together. Or if you need the link, just let me know. I'll send you. I'll put the link in the description box, or actually in the comment section. It's easy enough for me. If you just wanted to know how to set up this particular palette, the Schmincke palette, the way I have it set up here, just let me know, and I'll take a link that I have of a video on YouTube, and I'll put it in the comment section so you can just have it right there instead of having to go look through all my videos for that. But anyway, these are great, these brushes here. Travel brushes, you can, when you put them together like this, you can put this in your purse, your backpack, your shirt pocket. It has a hole in the top so your brush dries out, so you could stow this away for a week or a month or whatever. Once you're done painting, you rinse out your brush, close it up. Again, stow it in your bag, duffel bag, pocket, purse, wherever you have some art supplies when you're out, maybe doing a little bit of painting outdoors, or when you're traveling or on vacation or visiting friends and families and loved ones. So that's a great brush. This comes with the set. And then again, we're going to use this brush to start doing our details, or more of the finer details of the painting, the lighthouse and this other building over here. So I also wanted to mention that the light's coming from this side over here. So usually we make a light insignia like this, like a spotlight insignia, like that. Just so we can kind of know that this side of the building over here is going to be lighter on this side, and over here too, and then the lighthouse is going to be lighter on this side, and this will be more of the shadow side because the light is coming from here like this. So that's a good thing to keep in mind, and that's really one of the main things that's perfect to always do when you do your watercolor paintings, especially when right before you're going to paint and get painting, you can draw everything first in pencil. Then always you ask yourself, where's the light source coming from? And sometimes it might be that it's a cloudy day, so you might still have a little bit of shadow, but if it's a sunny day, it'll be a little more dramatic, the light. So in any case, let's get started with the painting here. So the roof looks like kind of like a reddish brown, so I'll use the burnt sienna and burnt umber, maybe a little bit of cerulean blue to just kind of get a little bit of a variation with that. And I'll just start right here. Let's get the roof going. And I'm just carefully setting my brush down on the paper and pressing. But you can notice that I don't have a lot of water up here. This is almost no water. These are the puddles, right? That's when you do your first wash, that first glazing. This is the kind of puddles that you'll have in your palette. But then once you start painting your details in your last part of your darker glazings, your darker tonal values, your darker glazings in the painting, then this is really, you're not going to have that anymore. So you can even just, if you wanted to, which is just a good habit, you grab a paper towel and you lift up your puddles like this. And you can even, just do this. Even some of this, I might leave this down here because I might use this color. But as a good discipline, once you're done using the really puddly color where you have lots of water, you can always just, this way it won't dilute down or create problems when you're making your darker tonal values and darker washes. So now you can see there's no puddles up here. I'm just grabbing straight paint, putting it into the palette, using a damp brush, of course, and the dampness of my brush with that little bit of water is enough to get the consistency we need for these darker washes like we're doing now. And then we can just zip this stuff in. Let's do it. Some chimneys, they might be a little bit more red, so you'll get those in a little more reddish color. Maybe this is an overcast day, so we're not going to worry too much about the light and shadow. There's a little bit of an effect. We'll kind of see how that plays out as we go. All right, so now, this one's a little more red, this roof. So let's take this and maybe just add a touch of alizarin crimson. That won't affect it too much. Like, I don't think we have to go in and add the alizarin crimson to the rest of the painting. That would be fine if you just added a little more of a bit of a different red mixture. I don't think that's going to be a problem. So again, I'm just carefully pressing down. It's always great to have that nice point. You see that really sharp point on this brush? Can't go wrong with that. That really gives you those details you need when you're painting something like this. Okay. So now we have our roofs on here. And then I noticed that I'll rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the water on a tissue. I'll come up here. And then this over here is a little bit lighter. The top of the cone. The top of the, it's a conical roof on top of the lighthouse. So we have that there, and it's a little bit lighter. So I kind of captured that little bit of a lighter red there. And I think we're really looking good here. What else do we have now? I'm trying to keep this basic, so I don't want to go into too much detail. I want to keep this painting basic. Maybe we could just add a few more details. I'm going to add a door and windows on this. So I'm going to make a center here for the door. And then 2 windows on each side. And if you can kind of see that, the windows are sort of level with the top of the door, like that. And then maybe there's a door over here on this side, and another one over here. So we'll just make a few little indications of some windows and doors. Over here there's some darker darks with some windows and some columns. So I'll just make some indications of a few things over here. Nothing to really worry about, just maybe you put in a couple of squares and rectangles over here. Maybe you have something that looks like the door here. This building's a little bit closer this way, it feels like, but pretty close. I think they're about the same distance away from us. If we're, like, let's say if we have a camera and we're taking a picture from here, from this side of the water over that way looking there, these buildings are probably the same, equal distance to us, or further, far away from us. So the windows and doors should be about the same size. We wouldn't want to make them too much different. So the doors are going to be the same. Maybe there's a window and a door here. And then there's some more hills in the background here, so you can sort of build in some distant hills behind these buildings now. We sat these buildings on top of that first line we drew, but now we're realizing that there's more land and some hills and terrain back behind those buildings. So that helps us. It makes it look more three-dimensional. All right, so now you see we have a really good looking painting started here, and we're going to keep going. Actually, we're halfway through at least. And then what we can do is we'll take a break. Let's take a break, and then once we come back, we'll start working on the windows and doors. We'll get those in, and then we'll do a little bit of details to the lighthouse, a little bit of shadow on there maybe. And I think from there we'll get some of the landscape started and the seawall, and then from there we'll just have a few more little details to do. Okay, all right, let's get started in just a minute. Let's take a break though. It's good always to take a few breaks, but you work at you're the artist. You work at your own pace. If you want to keep working, that's fine too. But I'm going to take just a 5-minute break, and I'll be right back. All right, so we're going to continue. Maybe we'll try to zoom in just a little bit here. Let's see if I can. That's a little better. Okay, so now we will. What I wanted to do when I took a break and I was looking at the painting, I noticed that maybe over here, this should be a little bit more shadow over on this side of the wall over here. So to have this show up as more light, because we did say the sunlight's coming from this way, adding that little tiny bit of blue is going to help us to create that feeling of light. And then I think I noticed that there was a couple of columns here on the front of the building that we're catching some light there, so I'll try to just leave those few bit of light over there, but that should be fine. A little more blue maybe, shadowy kind of blue. Alright, looks good. We could also, when this dries, we'll maybe add a little more shadow to the underside of the eaves of the roof, but I think we are looking pretty good. And we're also going to add a bit of a shadow along here with some more of that blue, like that, to the lighthouse, like that. So you'd be surprised, a little bit of those shadows in your painting and light, bits of light and shadow on buildings, subject matter, whatever you might be painting, whatever subject matter it is, it will go more. Oh, you'll notice that it enhances everything and makes everything look more realistic. Anyway, it has a realistic feel. Now for this part here, I'm going to actually add a little bit of that bluish green and make some of these windows and doors over here, and these are a little bit lighter, so I won't make these that dark. Okay, so these are kind of lighter, these are doors and windows there. So you can do that. You can get these lighter doors and windows over here, maybe another window over here, that, maybe another one there. Okay, and then we're going to take a little bit of that sap green and come over here and add some sap green. Actually, let's go down here, sap green, French ultramarine blue, sap green, and a little bit of burnt sienna and burnt umber, like that, and a little more. And we're going to have that beautiful dark green. And then we'll take that, we'll grab a tissue, we'll dry off, we'll just take a little bit of that paint off the brush that we mixed up here. A little bit off the brush. And then we can do our pine tree here. And the reason I take off that little bit of paint is because if I used that brush with all that paint loaded in it, in the brush hairs, then when I go to paint my pine tree here, I'm going to have so much blobs of paint on there, it won't work. It won't look good. I'll make a big mess over here. So that's why I take better to have less, especially if you're just starting out, or if you're maybe working in watercolor for a year or two or whatever, you know, kind of getting yourself learning all the processes of watercolor and things. You can always really be safe knowing that keeping a track of how much paint on your brush can really be huge and really help you a lot. And you'd want to have a little less, probably, a little less paint in your brush, in water in your brush when you're doing details, especially like this. Okay, so that's something you definitely can and I could take it and maybe put a little bit of water, blot some water on there, maybe blot up a little bit if it's too dark looking, like that. I'll take another bit here, that, another one there, like that. Okay, so we got a couple pine trees, maybe another one over here. So I'm going to try to balance things out a little bit. Like I wouldn't just want to do one pine tree. Let me do a couple here and there, like this. Sometimes when I make them more haphazard, they look better than when I try to really take my time doing them. I don't know why that is. And then, yeah, I'll do another one over here too. So I hope you're having fun so far. We're really kind of getting there. You know, we're getting towards the fantastic finish of the painting. And I'm just gonna do a little splashing maybe, kind of soften things up a little bit, or just add some variety to the painting. Sometimes a little bit of splashing will help to take pressure off the other things that you see in the painting. And I don't mind adding a few splashes too in the sky. Like that, and some in the water. We're going to do more work to the water though, so. And then again, a little bit of burnt sienna mixed into the sap green and French ultramarine blue. And then we'll just do our windows over here. There's some of these darker windows that we said we were, and the door too. The door over here was kind of dark, like that. So, and then we of course can go over here and just put in those. You can use the square brushes if you wanted to. I actually am so used to working with the round brush, but you can use a small square brush like this. There's even smaller ones than this that you can purchase to get some of the square shapes of your windows and doors. So for architecture and things like that, buildings, houses, scenes like this, sometimes those darker, or those flat brushes, the small flat brushes can really go a long way with like the details. That looks pretty good. And again, I think I wanted to add some purple here, ultramarine violet, mixed with a little bit of the green, just to get this nice little bit of dark there, shadowy color. Then I just tap off a little bit there, and then I just go across here for the shadow under there, and there should be another shadow under here too. And what will happen is that'll dry lighter. So I put it on there like this. Looks a little bit darker, but it will lighten up a little bit, and then that'll look like a perfect shadow. And there might even be a shadow under here too, like that. And there might be a shadow over here, like that. And here too. So, like that. All right. Looks good. And you can always blot up a little bit. If it's too dark, your shadow, you can lift up a little bit. But I already think that's looking really good. And then we can even start working on our water now. But let's do our seawalls in our ground area. So that's going to be more of the green. So we'll just pick up more of that green. There's some purple in there too. And then you're just going to think about, we're going to have some green and purple across here. I wouldn't fill it all in solid. I would leave some areas of light. So you can kind of see I'm leaving some areas of light over here. Maybe a little bit of change of color here. And I'm just carefully going across. You can kind of see we're getting some of that grass. There's some grass there with the sap green. And again, you can use your brush, keep your hand resting on the paper, and then you just press down and go across. Carefully go across. And you can kind of pick up a little more darker green now. You can change up the green a little bit like that, so you have some variation in your green mixes going across here. There might be some sand along the house too. And then we're going to do some of that sand color, purple. So we're going to use some of that burnt sienna and burnt umber. Pick up some of that purple, we'll mix that in there like that. some French ultramarine blue. And that'll give us that nice, like, mud looking color, right? Like that mud, and where the seawall, this is not even a seawall. I think this is just basically the sand and the mud along this coastal area here. And again, we're just doing some fine lines, leave some light there. It's kind of good to leave like that. Does that look good? It's looking good. I'm sure you're doing a great job, and I'm sure yours is looking fantastic. So we're just taking our time, and again, I'm really at a huge advantage because I have this very sharp pointed brush here. So you want to definitely, if you can, ensure that you have some good pointy brushes for these type of details. You don't need it for the whole painting, but for this part it's good to have. And now that you see this, you know we're getting close to the, we'll use some more of that burnt sienna, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of purple, and we're getting that really nice dark for that area right along the water's edge there, like that. Now the fun begins. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break now. We did a lot of work. You can do some splashing. Again, I would use splashing technique when you can. Practice the splashing technique. Just take a piece of printer paper. You know, I always mention to everybody, you take a regular piece of printer paper, and just practice your splashing on that. Your techniques. You know, you see how your splashing looks when you add more water, lots of puddly water like this. You get some splashing looking like that. And then if you use just a little bit of paint and not much water, you'll see you get some very fine, very fine splattering. And then if you use a larger brush, you can imagine the bigger your brush is, the bigger the splashes. So you can practice, you know, the splashing technique with some printer paper or scrap paper that you have around for watercolor. You know, you practice that a couple of times here and there once in a while, and you'll get the hang of the splashing. But I know it's a little bit awkward in the beginning to try to get it where you want it to go. Like here, I think I want to put some along this area here. So I kind of take my brush and put it along like that. But in any case, good work, and we are going to come back in a second. We're going to come back in a second. And do some more reflections in the water of the buildings. And I think that'll be really the completion of the painting. I think it looks really good right now, but we'll do those reflections, and I think you'll see that it really does enhance everything. All right, we'll be right back in just a minute. All right, now for the reflections in the water. And remember, we kind of talked about this in the beginning, how this water is like a bay. It's like an inlet here, and it's really like that water that's kind of like we're going to pretend that the water, the tide receded out of this water inlet here, and now we just have a very little bit of really still, you know, the water's not moving fast. It's kind of just like, almost like a lake, kind of very easy water, very, you know, light water, maybe just a foot or two deep. Maybe we have some, actually some of the bed showing through. We'll kind of see how it goes here. But first thing I want to do is, again, I wanted to mention this. Now that we're going to do our final glazing underneath here to get some reflections from our lighthouse and our building, I would use fresh, clean water again. I would change out the water, make sure you have fresh, clean water, have that ready to go. And then we'll take our brush, and now we're going to use a little less water. So what I would do is you could have a sponge next to your palette, next to your water container, and then when you rinse off your brush, you can always tap a little bit of water off on your sponge next to your water container so you don't have too much water on there. Or you could use a tissue, hold a tissue, rinse off your brush, and then come over and take off some of the water on a tissue or paper towel, and then go in here and do a light a light bit of water across your paper. Crystal clear, fresh, clean water, and just do like 2 passes with your brush with the fresh, clean water, and that's all you want. We're not doing, we're doing this very lightly and not much water at all, just a damp brush. And that's all you need here on this. And that's it. And now we take our colors and we're just going to mix up the same colors. So here you have some of that burnt sienna with some cerulean blue over here. Cerulean blue, we said. There's a little bit of green, a little bit of sap green over here. Okay, I rinse off my brush again. And then I'll pick up some of that color, maybe a little bit of burnt umber, maybe a little bit of the blue. Okay, so just something that's going to resemble the colors up here. And then we're going to say that it's going to be the equal distance here. So you just want to do that. Like that. And then the same thing over here. This one's a little more blue. Cobalt blue, a little more blue here for this roof. I get my brush so it's nice and sharp, the brush edges here, and I'll just do this. Okay, now think about this now. We're just having fun with this. It's like an illusion. We're really not. Now all we have to do is take the brush, dampen the brush, right? Clean it off in the water, rinse it off, and then now we're just going to go across like this. That's all you want to do. Just a little bit of that. Maybe there's a little bit for the trees over here. You can get a little bit of the sap green over here, a little bit of the blue. You're kind of just going to use the same colors you use for your trees. Maybe there's a little bit of trees here in the reflection. Same over here. A couple of spots. That's all you really need to do is like that, and that really looks good. Now what you can do is you can lift up your paper too, like this, and then maybe just tap on a little bit of water and let it run down. Hopefully you can see that. And we're not done yet too. We're going to do one more bit of some then I'll go by the bottom of this with my tissue just to blot up those puddles that are puddling up at the bottom. Okay. And then we're going to let this kind of set up, and actually we're going to let this dry. So you'll want to let this dry, but you can work on this damp though. So what we'll do is we're going to let this dry. You can use the blow dryer a little bit to dry it off, but don't dry it off 100% completely. Or if you do want to let it dry off 100% completely, that's fine. You can do it that way too. But if you leave it a little damp, the next step that we're going to do on top of this might look a little better. But we'll see how it works. I'm going to dry this with the blow dryer and then come back for the final bits of some water flowing in and out here, just to have a little bit of that more water feel. Okay, so give me 5 minutes. I'm going to blow dry off this bottom section of the painting, and this way you don't have to listen to all the noise, and then we'll be right back. All right, wow, we've been working on this for quite a while now. We've been working on this an hour, probably more than an hour. And we're down to the final few brush strokes here. The thing I want to do now is get a little bit of that water feel in the this inlet here. So the thing I'm going to do is just take some of that blue and green, take some of the blue, French ultramarine blue, some green, like that, maybe a little bit of the burnt sienna over here too. So we have a little bit of purple too. Maybe we'll put some purple in there too. That'll give us kind of a grayish color, but I think that'll look kind of nice, kind of the ocean kind of feel, the bluish and greens, right? And what we'll do is we're going to make the we're going to make, let's do this. Let's be safe about this. We're going to make smaller water lines closer to the buildings and closer to that shoreline over here. And then we're going to make larger water lines in the foreground here. So you want to have the lines across your painting here smaller. So I'll use the smaller brush first, like this. That one's first. Let me put this over here. This one first, and this one second. Okay, and this is a larger round brush. So this is a number 10 Raphael watercolor brush. And this again is our number 5 travel brush, which is the Da Vinci travel brush, which comes with this set. All right, so we're going to do the you can do this just really like have a fun attitude, you know, maybe do a couple practice runs. You can always take some paper and say, all right, let me just try a couple practice runs here. You can rest your hand on the table and just do these type of things like this. Or you can hold your brush up and just swing it across without having your hand braced down to anything. But I like my hand braced or my arm braced on my table to do this. And then I'm just going to do some water type. So this will be a little lighter green like this. And then as we get closer here with the larger brush, we'll use darker washes. But the lighter washes will be in the distance. And there's going to be kind of not that much, but we'll just see how it looks. But see how we just do a couple of these lines like this? Okay, I hope you do those like that. Not too many of them. And then we say that's it. We call it a day for the smaller lines back there. Then I rinse off my brush, and then I get the larger brush and I come in here like this. And now I pick up some paint and water, and then I dry off just a little bit on the paper towel or tissue, so I don't want to have tons of water flooding on there. And then I try the same thing, and I just want to do the same thing, kind of slide my hand like this. And you just want to get the feeling of the water coming in like this. Like that. Then you can always take your brush and do a couple of these. Just haphazard here and there, some of those vertical lines. You can even take some clean water and do some of them like that. Some vertical lines like that. You can blot up a little bit, do a couple of blots up here and there. A couple of splashes. I would add some more splashes to this, like that. And like I was saying before, you can get bigger splashes with a larger brush. So that's why I'm doing that. And then up here, I'll do the same thing. I'm going to add a couple of splashes here and there. And the reason I do that is it gives the painting more interest, honestly. So we have so much going on in the painting. But when you add the splashes, that's one more layer of interest, one more layer of things that you can see in the painting that look interesting, look different. That's going to catch the viewer's eye, and they think, what is that? Oh, splashing. Oh, it's over here, it's over there, and they start looking. It's something that's going to hold the attention of the viewers. If you don't like splashing, don't do it. Trust me. I know some of you don't like splashing. You let me know in the comment section, and I'm happy that you do. Let me know in the comment section. I'm always glad to hear if you don't like it, you do like it, why. So it's all good. You're the artist, it's your painting. You paint your paintings the way you want to paint them. I'm just here showing you what I do, my techniques, my methods in watercolor, what I've been practicing, for many years, and I'm continuing to practice and work on. And in any case, I think we had a fun time together. I want to hope everyone is satisfied with this painting and this process. We'll peel off the tape too, just to kind of get a better look at how it finishes up with a nice crisp clean border around it. And I think some of the water might have leaked under the tape, hopefully not too much, but it definitely takes on another look when you peel off the tape. And we'll do that now. Okay, that's pretty much dry there. All right, there we go. Okay, and then I can even zoom in here. Let's see if we can zoom in a little better. All right. So, we will see you on the next video. Oh, I hope also, too, I always mention, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe right on the right-hand side below, especially if you're just starting out or you just found me. This way you don't lose me. A lot of times people, they'll see a video, they'll like it, they'll say, oh, and then all of a sudden, if you don't subscribe, you might not find me again. So please subscribe. This way, you'll hear about my new videos when they come out each week. 1 or 2 videos at least each week we create. So you'll just be notified on YouTube when you open up YouTube each time. So you don't get any kind of text messages or calls or emails or anything like that. It's just when you subscribe below on the right-hand side, the next time you open up your YouTube channel and you're watching videos, you'll just see on the side of the your video screen, you'll see on the side that it might say, like, you'll see my video and my name there saying, like, I've created a new video. So that's all it is. Nothing too, bothersome at all. So again, happy painting, everybody. Enjoy the process, and we're going to be back before you know it soon with another video. Okay? See you soon. Bye-bye.